Jeanne d'Arc, ruler. Jeanne d'Arc, Jeanne d'Arc, class name ruler, Rura, is the ruler class servant in the Great Holy Grail War of Fate/Apocrypha. Ruler is the heroine of Fate/Apocrypha. She is one of the servants of Ritsuka Fujimaru of the Grand Order conflicts of Fate/Grand Order. Jeanne d'Arc, the standard bearer who correctly guides the Holy Grail War, Seihai Senso wa Tadashiku Michibiku Kishu, was the Saint of Orleans. A Catholic saint born in 1412 Domremy, France, and the heroine of France who liberated Orleans in the Hundred Years' War. Life. Jeanne d'Arc was a common farmer's daughter. She claimed she had received the command of God to fight. She heard the Lord's lament that the world changed straight into hell. The Lord wept into sorrow as no one could stop it, and people were not even allowed to live simply, and were compelled to become either beasts or food. Conflict never ended, and blood continued to rain incessantly and soak the land. She received a revelation from the Lord. The voice contained no glory or victory, no obligation or sense of purpose, but only the Lord laments. She caught his small, feeble murmurs that everyone else failed to hear. She responded by throwing away her life as a simple villager and the joy of loving someone and being loved back. Furthermore, there would be no compensation. She knew she would surely be scorned by the masses of both enemies and allies alike, considering their beliefs in the Church's guidelines for proper behavior in women. It was a very terrifying thing to contemplate. It was mad for a mere village girl from the countryside to leap onto the battlefield where people's killing intent swirled about. She would not turn her back on the Lord's cries. She decided to devote her life to oppose this world's hell, to help stop the Lord's tears and soothe him. She clad her armor on her body, hung a sword on her waist, and carried the flag. She fought alongside with Gilles de Rice. Having been born to a peasant family, Jeanne never knew the contents of the many books of prayer. She did try hard to learn them, but it seems she was simply born incapable of reading or writing. The most she ever managed was learning how to sign her name. While she worried about this, in the end, she decided that she needed little more in order to pray to the Lord. As she recalled, one of her comrades whom rode beside her, Gilles, once laughed and promised her that this was more than enough. They say that in reality all that happened was that she used tactics that the knights of that time didn't use out of contempt and honor. It is believed by Mikiya Kikutu that she utilized the counter-force in her deeds. Both Jeanne and Gilles were decorated as saviors and national heroes by King Charles in the cathedral, with the Ars Nova melody playing in the background. Death. Jeanne was put to death at Place du Vieux Marquet in Rouen the 30th of May 1431. Scorned by words of damnation as she was led to the pyre and feeling only slightly pained as she endured it, she had already abandoned emotions such as fear, disappointment, and regret from the outset of her battles, so she was able to walk towards her death without faltering in her steps. As she unconsciously reached for the cross that had been at her chest until they took it from her, she felt some sadness as there was nothing to support her heart. Shortly after, she was given a wooden cross fashioned by an Englishman who revered her, thanking him quietly as he knelt and wept. Her hands were tied to a wooden stake behind her, and the priest present completed the recitation of her final judgment before throwing the torch upon the pyre. As they believed that the loss of the flesh was the greatest of fears, it was the cruelest punishment that could be laid upon her. The flames began to burn her skin, scorch her flesh, and char her bones, all while she spoke the name of the Lord and the Holy Mother against those who denounced her prayers as only a lie. She could only find such thoughts strange, believing that prayers are nothing more than prayers, no matter to whom is prayed, that carry no intrinsic truths or falsehoods. Although she wished to tell them of the thought, she was unable to produce any sound. As she burned, she saw visions of her past, her ordinary family in her rustic village, and herself, the fool who ran away and tossed all of that aside. Having known how her journey would end from the start, she felt that she may have certainly been foolish in her actions, that she may have been able to have lived a regular life, gotten married, and lived together with her husband and child. Had she simply shut away the voice and abandoned the lamenting soldiers, she could have had that life, but felt that it was not a mistake to have walked her path due to those she had saved. She knew from the moment she chose to take to battle that she would have such an end, and she felt that she would never come to self-derision for her choices. Her past, impossible futures, and the cruel reality before her were meaningless before her prayers, offering herself that even if all other condemn her, that she would not betray herself. Rather than continue to look back on her path or crave for another future, she only wished for a silent rest. Within the savagery, she only kept a single prayer within her heart to the very end, one unblemished by regret and filled with sincerity. As she said her final words, "O Lord, I give myself to you," her consciousnesses ended and she was released from her suffering. Although the girl's dream ended there, the dream of La Pucelle was only just beginning. Her death had caused Gilles de Rice to go insane, turn his back on God to practice black magic, and commit atrocities before he was captured and hanged to death. Appearance. Ruler possesses the body of a French girl named Laetitia whose physical build, spiritual build, personality and magical energy were compatible to her. But her bust size alone is just slightly bigger than Jeanne d'Arc. Her eyes were described as amethyst-colored eyes and they were completely pure. She didn't have the precise and molded beauty of a homunculus or the kind of cuteness that made one's heart flutter just by being nearby like Astolfo. She possessed a wondrous beauty that scarcely felt real. In her battle mode, she can transform into her battle dress with armor woven from magical energy to enclose her. Under her gauntlet, she has command spells engraved on her hand, whereas those special to command the servants during the Great Holy Grail War are printed on her back with a similar shape drawn that of an angel. Although Gilles mistook King Arthur as Jeanne d'Arc, the main difference between her and King Arthur's appearance is sex appeal. The Girl of Orleans, casual outfit. Graveur Vacances, bikini costume. April Magical, the kamikaze magical girl Jeanne costume. Personality. Jeanne is described as a taciturn and cool girl when acting as a servant, but her natural self is a plain and quiet 16-year-old girl. She puts order first, and will wield a sword for the sake of the rules, but fundamentally believes all people and heroic spirits participating in the Holy Grail War are important. Jeanne and her host, Laetitia, do not share two personalities in one body, but rather their personalities are merged into one. Due to her faith, Laetitia accepts Ruler into her body completely. While Ruler remains the main dominant conscious, Laetitia's consciousness still lingers. In particular, Laetitia serves as the base for Ruler's knowledge that concerns matters outside of the Holy Grail War. She had never been able to read or write while alive, but she gains the ability to do so through Laetitia. Occasionally the possessed Laetitia would affect the possessor Ruler. For example, Laetitia is bad at handling men, so her influence would affect Ruler. Ruler could not interact normally with Sieg when they stayed together in Serge's house unless she maintained a certain distance. She has no wish for the Holy Grail, but if there were to be one, it would only be that the Greater Grail War be conducted correctly. She doesn't mind if the person wishes a personal desire in front of the Holy Grail. As long as it doesn't beckon the world's destruction, she would properly respect the wish. She doesn't have a single regret regarding her lifetime. She does not wish revenge or wish to be saved, and it was enough for her to know the life that she lived alone. In Fate/Grand Order's Little Santa Altar event, Jeanne says that when she was young her greatest wish was to see the ocean. She does not believe that God had forsaken her in her last moment, but rather that the Lord has never forsaken a single person. There was just nothing he could have done. Praying, giving offerings, everything is an act not for oneself, but for the Lord. She believes prayer will heal the Lord's laments and sorrow. The moment her prayer began, she became separated from the world, removed from the past, the future, and reality itself. She was there not for any particular purpose, but simply to offer a prayer to God. By doing so, the course which she ought to take would come to be fixed. To her, every second of prayer is as important as every breath she takes. A day will not pass where she does not pray. She had a strange habit of comically poking Gilles in the eyes whenever he was least suspecting. The Servant Summer Festival event in Fate/Grand Order reveals that Jeanne has a talent for drawing and feels great joy whenever she brings a story to life by drawing a manga. She even says that if she were just a normal person and not a heroic spirit, making manga is what she would want to do with her life. Jeanne also has a strong desire to be an older sister, referring to Ritsuka Fujimaru, Jeanne Alter, and Jeanne Alter Santa Lily as her younger siblings. In real life Jeanne d'Arc was the youngest of 5 siblings. In the Orleans Singularity, Jeanne tells Marie Antoinette that when she was a child she was considered one of the boys by the other kids, and in Fate/Zero Material Gilles is described as liking boyish girls. In My Room, in Fate/Grand Order, Jeanne says that she can't resist lying down to sleep in a pile of hay. In My Room, in Fate/Extella Link, she says that sometimes she would lean against a tree and stare at the sky while her chores went undone. Abilities. As the world's most famous female saint, Jeanne d'Arc left her village at the age of 17, and 2 years later indelibly carved her name into history when she was burned at the stake. She is the saint who saved France by accomplishing a miraculous military offensive, only to meet a tragic end shortly thereafter. As a heroic spirit, she has qualifications to be summoned in the Ruler and Saber class. Under the Ruler class, she is a special heroic spirit summoned by the Holy Grail itself to act as the administrator of the Holy Grail War. Any servants participating in the Holy Grail War can learn identity and information, however information on the ruler is strictly confidential, there are many mysteries in its presence. In the Great Holy Grail War, several of her abilities aren't functioning correctly due to the existence of the previous ruler. She has a unique ability that allows her to scan around her position from a wide range within 10 kilometers radius. The scan allows her to search for servants' positions which can even overcome assassins' presence concealment ability. One of the many privileges afforded to the manager of the war is the function of locating servants. As she dips her right hand into the holy water and casts it into the air, the water gives a dim glow and then begins to smoothly draw a three-dimensional map. Ruler's perception ability exceeded that of the spirit board, Ryukaben. When Siegfried committed suicide, she could affirm that Siegfried had not completely disconnected with this world. It was unclear where exactly he was, but, in any case, he should still be alive. When Sieg used his dead count shapeshifter, she can sense Siegfried from a dying state to be alive and active. Skills. Class skills. Magic resistance, EX rank. In addition to the magic resistance of the Saber class, she demonstrates a high anti-magic from her unwavering piety. However, since it is just evading, the magecraft, only Jeanne will be saved against a wide-range magic attack. It cannot cope with the sacraments of the Church. At this rank, Jeanne can't be wounded even by magecraft from the Age of Gods. However, this resistance only turns spells away from her. In other words, it doesn't negate them. Semiramis's lightning spell attack was suppressed, not a single spot, but an entire area had been diverted away without injuring her. The strike, which should have had a will of its own, had lost its malice. Instead, the lightning attacked the surrounding area. True name discernment, B rank. When summoned as a ruler, status information such as the true identity, skill, and parameters is automatically revealed when she directly encounters a servant. However, servants with hiding capacity depend on her luck level to bypass this. God's Resolution, a rank. As a privilege of the ruler class, Jeanne d'Arc has 2 command spells that can be used for each servant participating in the Holy Grail War. However, she cannot repurpose other command spells that had been previously used. When the nameless vampire previously known as Vlad III and Darnik Priestone Ig Millennia abandoned his existence as a servant, this skill was no longer able to restrain him. As such, ruler deemed him the greatest threat that could destroy the Holy Grail War, and she used her privilege to force a truce with the Black and Red faction servants to eradicate the vampire. Personal skills. Revelation, a rank. A skill equivalent to Instinct. Instinct is a sixth sense regarding battles, but Revelation accommodates all matters related to the achievement of a goal, for instance, choosing the most suitable path while traveling. Because there is no basis, so she thinks, it cannot be explained well to others. Charisma, C rank. The natural talent to command an army. Jeanne's figure participating in the assaults hoisting a flag raised the morale of the soldiers to the limit and united the troops. Thanks to her charisma, it is possible to make others believe in the contents of the revelations without basis. She can make others believe her words due to her status as ruler, differing from suggestion magecraft in that she only has to forcefully assert her point to regular humans for them to acquiesce. She persuaded her teachers and friends that she must go on a journey and made them understand that it was absolutely necessary. Saint, B rank. Indicates being acknowledged as a saint. When summoned as a servant, the ability of Saint is selected one among, raising the effectiveness of sacraments, automatic HP recovery, 1 rank up to charisma, and production of a holy shroud is possible. Noble Phantasms. By brandishing her holy flag, Jeanne can activate her Luminosite Eternel Noble Phantasm, by converting her EX rank magic resistance skill into an equally powerful defense that blocks all physical attacks. It is the crystallization of the legend of Jeanne d'Arc waving her flag on the battlefield and fighting to the very end with hardly any wounds. However, each time she uses it, she accumulates damages, so naturally, she can't withstand an anti-fortress Noble Phantasm multiple times in a row. Incidentally, Jeanne uses this flag mostly to attack in battle. Jeanne also has access to La Pucelle, a conceptual crystallization weapon interpreted as her burning at the stake in an attack-like fashion. It is a variant of reality marble that crystallizes the mental landscape of the user into a sword in the form of flames. After the battle in which this noble phantasm was manifested, Jeanne will be extinguished. In exchange for her life, she gains access to pure destructive power that cannot be calculated, which allows her to annihilate anything in existence. However, these flames only destroy that which she considers a dangerous threat that must be destroyed. In other words, this noble phantasm cannot be used against simply a strong enemy or out of emotions like hate. Summoning. Ruler is possessing a human body, an unprecedented summoning with a very weak link to the current world, so she has a number of irregularities that do not plague regular servants. She has the physical abilities of a servant, but since she is linked to a physical human body through the realm of the unconscious, she has to carry on her life as a normal human. She cannot turn into spiritual form, and she must deal with the body's needs of hunger and sleep. Ruler kept a backup of Laetitia's body. When she achieved her objective or if she was killed midway through the war, at that instant, Laetitia's body would return to its original form as recorded in the backup and, depending on the situation, would be forcefully transported somewhere safe. With that process, no matter how many wounds this body received, it would immediately regenerate.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.